Hey guys, it's me, known well as creator and host of You Me Empathy. Today's episode, on episode 9, I am chatting with Laura Donaldson, my friend Laura Donaldson, aka Secret Agent L, on the topic of the physical effects of mental illness. So we get into brain fog and lethargy and just feeling so heavy and not wanting to leave the house, and we even become poop buddies. So that's a thing, and you can look forward to that. Laura is great, and it's a good conversation. So I hope you really enjoy it. The disclaimer for the show is that You Me Empathy is for informational and or entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Okay, and the last thing I'll say is, if you're not following You Me Empathy on Twitter and Instagram, please do that, at You Me Empathy. We also have a Facebook group, so go check that out. Links in the show notes. And lastly, we have a new Patreon page, so please look up that and consider supporting the show. You can get cool stickers, be a guest, ask questions of guests, all that loveliness is there. Patreon.com/YouMeEmpathy. Okay, enjoy my chat with Laura Donaldson on the physical effects of mental illness. Bye-bye. Welcome to episode 9 of You Me Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You Me Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire conversation and insight so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. You Me Empathy is a safe place. You Me Empathy is a safe place, a conversation between friends, a place to inspire the empathy and beauty in all of us. Today, in episode 9, I am hopeful... I'm going to try that again. Today, in episode 9, I am a hopeful, happy, feely boy, thankful to continue this empathy journey on the topic of the physical reality of living with mental illness, with the passionate, hard-on-her-sleever, founder of Secret Agent L, and friendly feline fanatic, Laura Donaldson. Hello, Laura.
Hello, friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me on. I feel like really lucky.
Well, I feel lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. So, listeners, today we are talking about, as I mentioned, the sort of the physical effects, the physical reality of living with, specifically depression, but we'll talk a little bit about just the physical effects of living with mental illness broadly. And Laura, my dear friend Laura, who I've known just via social media for a few years, was gracious enough to, be on You Me Empathy, and I'm very excited to talk with her today. Let's get into it. Before we get into your story a little bit, Laura, a thing that I like doing is to do just a little check-in. So, how are you feeling? How was your week? Any things you want to talk about? Just an emotional check-in, I guess, of sorts.
You're the best. Thank you.
Yeah.
So today I'm feeling pretty good. And I'm sure we'll talk about this later in the episode, but when you have depression, and I'm assuming with other diagnosed mental illnesses, there are days where you wake up and you can feel pretty terrible. And then there are days where you're like, all right, maybe I can actually like do some stuff today. And today's one of those days where I feel like I can sort of do some stuff. And I'm in Pittsburgh, and we just had this like very brief sort of 12-hour snowstorm that dumped about 4 or 5 inches on us. And so it's very quiet and very bright outside with the snow. And that really affects me. Like that brightness and that quiet kind of helps me feel a little more centered. And so when I got out of bed this morning, I was like, all right, I'm feeling like I can do some stuff today.
I love that.
I work in higher ed. And so this past week was like our first full week back after the holiday/winter break. And I feel kind of embarrassed to say this, but I was like, oh my gosh, I have to work 5 full days in a row. This is exhausting because I had been off for like over 2 weeks. And so coming back this past week was rough. Just getting up every morning and in the dark, which is not helpful for me. I really struggled and was feeling definitely some depression, just kind of having to be away from home, which is my comfort zone, and having to be on and performing as a functional adult. So the week was really long. In fact, Thursday night, I fell asleep on the couch after eating dinner. And I didn't wake up until 11:30 that night. And so my body was telling me like, girl, you need to just relax. And I completely fell asleep. I was exhausted. But I have a 3-day weekend with the wonderful holiday coming up on Monday, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And so I know these next few days I'll be able to sort of, regroup and hopefully keep my energy up. But yeah, I'm doing okay. And I'm very grateful for that. I'm grateful for any day that I can wake up and feel like I don't have a 12-ton weight dragging behind me or crushing down on top of me. So, yeah. How are you?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I was just going to comment, obviously I live in Southern California, so I don't experience that sort of white, snowy calm that you were describing, but it is something I have experienced before. And it is it reaches my heart in a way that I think I'm affected in the way you describe it. I think I'm affected by that, and I have been affected by that experience. It's almost like there's a sheen of calm. There's a softened view of the world, and everything is just in a sort of meditative state.
Well, it forces us to slow down. I mean, the roads are terrible. Sometimes when we get these kinds of snowstorms, obviously we can't go anywhere. And so we are forced to be still. And in our current, culture and our current world, there's like this kind of obsession with faster, more, better, bigger. Oh, yeah. And I think in many ways it's incredibly unhealthy and incredibly damaging. So while there are a lot of scary parts about these kinds of storms, and people do put their lives at risk to clear our roads and to take care of us, there's this. I'm incredibly grateful for the times when I can just be at home and be forced to slow down, because that really does seem to help the symptoms of my depression, when I can sort of just not feel the anxiety of life and going and doing and being more and bigger and faster. So yeah, it's a definite gift.
You mentioned that when you sort of transition out of a weekend or a period of time that you're off for vacation, and you transition back into work, you mentioned being on. What does that mean to you? Because I think I relate to that. I always, for the listeners, I work at home now, and so I have a dream job of sorts, and I work with amazing people. But I've had experiences in the past where I've worked in more corporate environments, and I always felt the pull and the pressure to be, quote unquote, be on. And I've even sort of fought against that at times, because it feels almost, like No, I'm not. You can't put me in a box. And Jessica, my wife, always sort of got on my case about that because I did have this, I don't know if it's like an inherent sort of anarchic string or streak in me, but there's something about it that is troubling. What is that feeling like for you?
Yeah, well, so like I said earlier, I work in higher ed. And about a year ago, I took a new job in higher ed at a new university. And I'm now working at an R1, very prestigious university here in Pittsburgh. And the culture there is highly competitive. It is about, innovation and creating and doing and, bigger and better and faster. And it's been a real adjustment for me because the university that I worked at previously was a very small, private sort of just lower, slower pace, I guess.
Yeah.
And coming to this new institution has really been a challenge for me because I'm just not that kind of person who's like more, bigger, better. And I feel like when I'm there, I have to sort of be on, like I have to mirror that energy. I have to mirror that sense of urgency. And that's just been a real challenge for me. I really like my new job and I love the people I work with. But when you have a mental illness, for example, for me, I have depression. There are days where being on is the hardest thing to do. It takes every ounce of energy because you don't, and I'm sure like this kind of relates to the whole stigma around mental illness. When you're at work, you're expected to be completely professional and high functioning and always on. And when you have depression or mental illness, like some days that it's either not possible or it is really, really challenging. So the amount of energy that I have to use to be on, to be high functioning, to be mirroring that energy is absolutely exhausting. So I'm not surprised at all that on Thursday, after dinner, I completely passed out on the couch. I was just, my whole body, mind, and spirit were just exhausted. So yeah, being on is really hard. Like some days I wish we could just be at work and be like, I feel super depressed and can't really do much. I'll answer a couple emails. Is that cool? Like, I kind of wish the expectations every once in a while could just be that. Like, yeah, just like be here and answer some emails. Yay.
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought this up, this being on facet of life and then how it affects us, on a mental health level, because I think that the structures that we exist in, in work, in our social circles, etc., there always is this sort of underlying pressure, whether it's coming from our family, friend groups, peer groups, etc., of being a certain thing, existing within these boxes. And I just hope like the future of these environments are sort of more open to what you're talking about, where, I mean, obviously you're not going to go into work and do nothing, but there has to be more, there just has to be more empathy and conversation and compassion in those cases. So
I just wanted to say, I do, I'm very excited about the university where I'm working now because they're really making a very strong effort to highlight mental health and self-care and just, mental illness awareness among the students and the faculty and the staff, because it is such a competitive environment. And we're seeing with students, the effects of that pressure. And it's really sad to see that in young people. But I'm really grateful that I'm working at an institution where they take that very seriously. So while I do feel this pressure to sort of be on and mirror that energy and that urgency, I think a lot of that, I just do it to myself.
Yeah.
I think that I really do. Like, my supervisor and my colleagues are all incredibly supportive. And we actually are very open about, sort of how we're feeling, and we check in, and we kind of talk about that regularly, even in our staff meetings. So I think a lot of it is like a pressure that I put on myself. But I'm very grateful for where I work and the sort of the resources that are available to me and to the students that I work with. So.
Well, that's good. That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
And I don't, my intention wasn't to explicitly say like, oh, your place of work is, because I agree. I think mostly it always comes from an internal sort of thing. And,
I'm my own worst enemy.
we all are. We all are. One more thing about this, and then I'll move on to sort of my emotional check-in, but the place I work now with, Mindy and Matt and those guys, just wonderful people. We do a sort of weekly retrospective where we talk about, our wins and sort of struggles for the week. And then we talk from a work perspective, and then we talk about that from a personal perspective as well. And, initially I felt a little bit nervous and, maybe uncomfortable talking about, maybe some of my more personal struggles, but I've been always met with just so much grace and kindness and compassion that it's just a nice sort of refreshing change from previous job experiences where those conversations could not happen. So it's very exciting to hear that you're having these conversations with your colleagues and whatnot, because that's the conversation is the most important part of it, and listening and that's how we grow and find perspective from each other. So
I totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah.
So quickly, I'll just do a check-in for me this week. Let's see. So I had my first yoga session of 2018.
Woohoo!
Yeah. I do like yoga a lot. I haven't done it in about 6 months, but it's physically it's great, but I think more for me, it's mostly about the mental experience, going away for 50 minutes and, being away from my phone, being away from any sort of external triggers, and just focus on my breathing and focus on my body. And it's just, it's a very calming experience. So I really enjoyed that this week. And I think it sort of had a ripple effect on the rest of my week.
Oh, that's awesome. I have never done yoga, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit later in our conversation, but I like physical activity. Ugh. Like if I could just lay on the couch and watch Netflix like every day for the rest of my life, I would be so happy. And I don't exercise. It is the worst. I am the worst. I do not exercise, and I know I should, and I know that would probably really help with my depression.
Yeah.
But everyone that I talk to who does yoga like raves about it. And I don't know, like maybe this is the year, I don't know, but you're selling me.
Well, yeah, I think we will definitely get into that later, because I am a big proponent of, physical activity as a means to sort of heal us and improve our mental states and stuff. So we'll definitely explore that, and I will definitely force you into yoga. Just kidding.
Peer pressure, yeah.
Peer pressure, yeah. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about you, Laura.
Okay.
Why don't, for the listeners, just tell the listeners a little bit, about yourself, and maybe even if you want, if you can, Secret Agent L, which is an amazing sort of thing that you did for about 5 years, if I'm correct.
Yeah. Yeah,
and it's how I found out about you originally, and just maybe a little bit of your sort of depression history and your story.
Sure. So I'll start with the Secret Agent L project. Back in 2009, I had a friend who was writing a blog. She lived in Texas, and I was just reading her blogs, and she was talking about a birthday that was coming up, and she was saying in her blog post how much she hated birthdays. So I think birthdays are phenomenal. Like, I love birthdays. So I wrote in her comment section, I was like, girl, please, birthdays are amazing. Like, it's a celebration of the anniversary of the day you came to be, like the day you came into existence. Like, we need to celebrate this. And I said, what do you want for your birthday? I want to send you something. And she responded with, oh my goodness, no, you don't need to send me anything. She said, why don't you go and just do some sort of random act of kindness in my name? And she's like, you can call yourself Secret Agent L. So me, I have a theater background, and I was like, oh, this is a new character. I simply must participate. So I decided that I would, sort of have this persona, this anonymous persona, and I would go out into the city of Pittsburgh, and I would do some sort of random act of kindness and take pictures and sort of document it. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we put it on a blog? And so I had a friend at the time who was sort of helping me with this. Her name is Vivian. And she actually went out and did the very first mission of kindness for the Secret Agent L project. She put a flower on a random person's car, and we had a little note attached to it with like Secret Agent L on it and like our blog web address. And she took pictures of it, and we put it up on our blog. And I sent the link of the blog to my blogger friend and said, here's what we did for your birthday. And she was just like, oh my gosh, you've gone above and beyond. This is amazing. She shared it with some other fellow bloggers who had a lot more traffic, and it sort of just started to spread like wildfire. And I started to, continue to do these secret missions where, I don't know, I was leaving Starbucks gift cards for $5 in random places around Pittsburgh, and like little notes and the Secret Agent L Gmail address so people could respond if they wanted to. And, leaving rolls of quarters in the laundromat for someone to find, that kind of stuff. Keeping it like pretty inexpensive, but still, meaningful. And the entire project just took off. After a year, I remained anonymous, and then I decided, I think I want to share my identity because I was getting a lot of emails and, messages via Twitter from people who were learning about the project or people who were finding these gifts. And they were telling me, like, the sort of underlying theme in almost all of these messages from people was that they were feeling really depressed, and they were feeling really alone, or they were feeling exhausted, or just like didn't know what their purpose was. And they would stumble across this little act of kindness, this little gift, and it kind of woke them up a little and really affected them. And so I thought, what might happen if I give up my anonymity and I can actually sort of be a visible facilitator to encourage people to be kind and to reach out to people and to talk about mental illness. So I had an identity reveal party here in Pittsburgh, and we had sort of, our platform was the National Alliance on Mental Illness. We had them at the party, and people had the donation to get into the party went to not me, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And all of these people would come up to me at the party and say like, oh, I live with bipolar disorder, or my brother, has schizophrenia, or, thank you so much for like bringing this to light. And it just sort of proved to me that there are so many people who are living with mental illness, and there are so many people who have loved ones and close friends with mental illness, that it is a lot more prevalent than I think at that time, back in this was 2010. And then a lot of people realized, and definitely it was more in the forefront. It is more in the forefront now than it was back then. So the whole project just took off. I mean, I ended up getting interviewed by CNN. I had a phone call from Oprah, like not Oprah herself, but her people,
Wow.
for a potential, like as a potential backup guest for one of her seasons.
How did
It
that
never
go?
panned out. It never panned out. It's okay. It was like her final season and they had all their guests lined up. And I guess they had to interview people as like potential backup
Got
guests
it.
in case
Yeah.
somebody dropped out. Yeah. And it just really became this incredible experience for me to see how hungry people were for kindness and how hungry people were for connection and how hungry people were to be heard if they were living with and suffering with a mental illness or knew someone who was. So the Secret Agent L project for me kind of threw me into this mental health world a little more so than I kind of already was. And I'll be eternally grateful for that.
What an
And in
amazing
terms,
experience.
it was amazing. And
Can
I mean, I
yeah.
stopped the project after like 5 years because, I like full-time job and family obligations and things like that. And I feel like the project had sort of run its course.
Sure.
So I don't, I'm not actively involved in it anymore. But sort of that sentiment feels like it's still out there. And I'm so grateful that people are kind of like, oh, Secret Agent L would love this if it's a story on kindness or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it definitely feels like it's gotten into the I don't know, this, at least the Pittsburgh lexicon. And on social media, people will be like, Secret Agent L, this is very Secret Agent L like. So I know, I feel like completely unworthy, but it's so touching. And then to sort of speak to my own sort of experience with mental illness, I have a close family member who has schizoaffective disorder. And the only way I can sort of describe schizoaffective disorder, it's kind of like a cross between paranoid schizophrenia and bipolar disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up around, this person who has this illness, and it definitely affected my life very much. I am very pleased to say that my family member is in recovery right now. So recovery is possible. And it warms my heart every day. But I started really kind of experiencing my own mental illness, my own depression, when I was in junior high. We moved around a lot when I was growing up. My dad was in the steel business. And so we relocated a lot when I was growing up. And it was very hard for me. I have an older brother, and so we were kind of each other's support system. But then I have another family member who has this, severe mental illness, and combined with sort of the significant changes of moving a lot, and having, this mental illness as a part of our family story, it was very difficult. And I could feel myself really slipping into some serious depression. And it really kind of took hold of me when we moved from Mansfield, Ohio. I had lived out in Mansfield for most of my sort of grade school, middle school years. And when I was in junior high, we moved out to the Western Pennsylvania, to the suburbs of Pittsburgh. And that is when I really noticed something isn't right. Hmm. And I remember...
How old were you then?
I think I was 12 or 13 when we moved. Yeah. And that's a very formative period in someone's life, right? That transition from, adolescent to sort of your first year as a teenager. It was a really difficult time. And I can remember I think I was 13 or 14 when I went to see my first therapist. Mm-hmm. And I think I was too young to sort of understand what therapy was or even what depression was, but the depression definitely, has been a part of my everyday life since then. And I've seen therapists and, psychiatrists, and it's just definitely been a part of my life. And as I get older, I turn 40 in a couple of weeks. Oh my goodness.
Woohoo!
Yay. As I get older, I mean, I feel like I'm able to sort of understand it better now and manage it. But the period, before that, my 20s were rough. Oh, they were rough.
When you were experiencing this as a kid, what was it you who sort of realized that, oh, I need to get to therapy, or what were your support systems like?
I was very, very lucky that my parents were so, and still are, so incredibly supportive and understanding. And I think they could see I was really, really struggling. I did not want to leave the house. I didn't want to go to school. I had a hard time with friendships. I mean, I just felt something just was wrong. And they stepped in, and I'm forever grateful for that. And then when I got to like college, I sought out, professors that I trusted. I had some really wonderful friends in college who were, very understanding. I was also a theater major, and I don't want this to be like a blanket statement, but a lot of the people that I was with in my theater program, that we all feel very deeply, and many of us in the program lived with depression and anxiety. And so I felt kind of a common bond with the people in my program. And so it was very easy then and there to sort of talk about what it meant to have depression, what it felt like, and what kind of help, I needed to seek out. So I was very, very lucky that I had a support system. And I think that's one of the most important ways that, you can get into recovery, is to have that support system.
Right.
So it's very, yeah.
And, this was in college when you were in the theater group?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were you going to therapy then? What kinds of things were you doing to combat your depression then?
So I think one of the great things about being at, a university or college is that you have built-in support systems there at the institution for you. And so I lived on campus, and we had a counseling center. And I was able to get hooked up with a therapist there who I saw for the majority of my time in undergrad. And then I ended up going back to the same institution for my graduate work and continued to see the same therapist. And then the therapist left the university to go into private practice, and I followed her and continued to see her, afterwards. So I was very lucky to have sort of the same consistent therapist and type of therapy that was very instrumental to me just being able to function and to, in some instances, to stay alive. Just a suicide language disclaimer. In college, there were a few times where my depression was so deep and so all-consuming that I really wanted to die. I did not want to exist. And so being able to have the kind of support system I had, I'm still here, and I happily blame my support system for that. So yeah, like having a good therapist and being able to talk about it, and just having people in my life who didn't ostracize me or didn't, stigmatize me was a great gift. I'm forever grateful for that.
It's a huge gift, and I'm so glad you had that. Not everyone does. I would say the majority of us, I mean, I'm no statistician, but and I'm not an expert, as the listeners know, but it seems, in my experience, the majority of us do not have that experience.
That's true.
The normative experience is that we struggle, and then a word I've been using, those around us don't have the tools to properly help, right?
Help. Mm-hmm.
And that's not a damnation on them. That's just it's a learning thing. Mental health is a huge subject and exceptionally complex, especially depression, something that affects millions and millions of people, and it's such a huge topic. And so it warms my heart to hear that you had people in your life who were understanding, were there to listen. Sometimes just listening is a huge part of helping.
Huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think too, like one of the things I've been thinking about since I made this recent job change, I have worked in higher ed for 12 and a half years. I have lost count. But when I took this job, I started to kind of reevaluate, like, what does it mean to work in higher ed? What does it mean to work with students? And I remember my own sort of university, period of my life being wonderful, but simultaneously very, very difficult, because I think that's when my depression really started to, like, the symptoms were much more significant when I was in college than they were when I was in, junior high and high school. And so I think about, the students that I see every day and how difficult college was for me. I feel so much more sympathetic and empathetic when I look at and work with my students, that I think to myself, if they're struggling, I just want to be as compassionate and as available and as non-judgmental, to and for them as possible. Because I remember how much I was struggling when I was, 18 to 23.
Yeah.
And just having one or two people in my life who listened and who were so incredibly compassionate and saw me as just a human being who was just trying to get through this world, made all the difference. And if I can do that for a student, then I feel like that's my life's work, right? Like, I work sort of on the administrative side of higher ed. I'm not a professor, not an instructor. And, my job requires me to do lots of paperwork and answer lots of emails and, push lots of forms and things like that. But my real job, I feel like, is to be be a part of a support system for people who are living with, this terrible disease. And yeah.
That's a beautiful perspective. You are embracing empathy. You're saying,
I'm trying.
I experienced this thing, and I recognize that you maybe experience it too. And I have these tools that maybe helped me, and I'm going to be there for you with the tools if you need it.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
Definitely. Thanks.
Can you talk a little bit about the main topic of today's episode is the physical effects that we feel related to, in your case, depression, but just mental health as a whole. How does it affect you physically?
Yes. So we all kind of know that there's been this push recently, thank goodness, to acknowledge mental health as health, right? It affects your body. Your mind and your body are so connected. And when I think about, this disease or this illness that I have, it just resides in a particular place in my body, right? It's still in my body. It's of my body. And it's just at the top part of my body, as opposed to, like liver issues, or I have knee joint problems, right?
The top part of my body. I love that.
Part of my body.
That is so well said.
Location.
Well, and also, sorry, I'm just going to interrupt because I love that so much. The top part of your body. It's all framing it that way.
Yeah.
It allows us to, I think, more easily understand it. Put it into terms that may be a little less amorphous.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And so, this illness, while you can't really physically see it, like on an X-ray or a CT scan, it's definitely there. And the way that it affects my physical, the rest of my physical body, from the top part down, it can be really significant. Like I said at the top of our episode here, there are days when my physical symptoms are really debilitating. I have pain, physical pain in various parts of my body. I have IBS, so my intestines and I don't know if this is going to be too much information, but my intestines and I we're mortal enemies. We are constantly at war with each other. And that makes moving through the world really difficult. There are times when I have to be so cognizant of sort of my intestinal reality and my anxiety. I mean, I have, generalized anxiety disorders as well, that, anytime I go out to the symphony or to a play, with my husband or friends, or if I'm, sitting in an auditorium or wherever on an airplane, like I have to be in an aisle seat because I have to be able to like get up and run to the restroom because my IBS is at times debilitating. And that's, something that coexists often with depression.
Right.
And then just sort of the physical, some people describe depression as like this heavy feeling, and I completely agree with that. I feel sometimes physically like I have this very heavy concrete brick sitting on my décolletage, like right below my collarbone. I just feel when I move it, I just feel heavy and weighted. And that makes moving through the world incredibly difficult. Getting dressed, getting to work, being on at work. When you feel like you are pressed on by, this concrete block on your chest or on your shoulders, it makes existing really hard. And you can't do the things that you want to do or that you need to do. So for me, depression is as much about sort of my emotional status, my mood, as it is about, the physical pain and the sort of debilitating reality of you just not being able to move about as a person the way I want to.
Mm-hmm. I'm really glad we're talking about this because, and it's a thing that we're going to talk about a lot on this show, this podcast, is the mind and body, and how that they are in fact connected, as you're saying, and how a lot of sort of just facing and interpreting and experiencing mental health is, or growing in mental health is, about understanding and recognizing how we're affected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's physical, that's mental. And it is important to remind ourselves that like mental affects physical, physical affects mental. It is a cyclical sort of interweaving thing.
It's very intimate.
It is
a very
intimate.
Intimate relationship. It really is. Yeah.
How do you find a balance between those things? Like I so relate to the IBS. I'm sorry you have to deal with that. I have a similar issue. It's called small bacterial intestinal overgrowth. And I know,
so
right?
Sorry.
And it's similar to Crohn's.
Crohn's.
Yeah, and so I have, as I like to tell Jessica, I have poopy issues.
We call them pooper problems in our house. Yeah. Like how's the pooper? Oh, the pooper's not doing so well today. Yeah. We have this conversation openly in my house.
Yes. I mean, you kind of have to. It's part
you
of.
Have to.
Well, poop. Everybody poops. But
poop happens, right?
Poop happens. But, we need to talk about our stuff. We need to talk. We need to have we need to have people in our lives where we can talk about these things.
There is not a time in my life where I do not have Pepto-Bismol on my person. Okay. That's my reality. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I can say, I can confirm, Laura, that we are poop buddies.
Poop buddies. Oh my gosh. Can that be like a subgroup of the private Facebook group for Uni Empathy?
Yeah.
We'll have the buddies section. I think that would be wonderful.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So my question to you is, when you're experiencing these physical effects of your depression, your mental health, how are you handling it? It can't just be a matter of like, I gotta put on my bootstraps and just fight through this. Like, what are right. some kinds of things you're working on to make it a little better?
I'm so glad you said, pull up or put on your bootstraps.
Yeah.
I think that, our culture is so obsessed with like rugged individualism, right?
Ugh, it's
It's kind of the
gross.
American way. It's totally gross.
Yep.
And so when I think about like the physical reality that I live every day, I think to myself, I don't want to be ruggedly individual about this. I don't want to be like, pat yourself on the back and be like, you can do it. Just pull up your bootstraps and, put on your big girl pants or whatever. That the reality is that like I'm suffering, and chances are, like very high chances are, someone in great proximity to me is also suffering, right? Like
Exactly.
the statistics show that I've seen 1 in 4 and 1 in 5 people live with mental illness or have a mental illness. So the chances are that people around me are also suffering. So when I feel the physical effects of depression kind of consuming me on a particular day or in a particular moment, I try to seek out someone that I trust, and I tell them, I say like, yeah, I'm having a hard day today. Like my body really hurts, or I'm fighting off a migraine. I mean, I get migraines pretty regularly. Also, I have Pepto-Bismol on my person, and I also have Imitrex on my person at all times
No.
because I have migraines. And so I try to just seek out someone who, is understanding and is a safe person to talk to. And I say like, the physical reality is that I don't physically feel very good today. And then it's even worse if emotionally I also don't feel well. But I'm really trying to listen to my body. I want 2018 to be the year that I listen to my body, and that, I encourage my husband also to listen to his body, that if we fall asleep after dinner, it's because our bodies are telling us body says body is tired, body
Yeah.
needs rest. Or if there's a time where the pain, feels really overwhelming, that I will, if I have to call in sick, that's what I'll do because it is my health.
Yes.
And just really pay attention to what my body's telling me and really try to find ways in which that pain will be, relieved a little bit or completely eliminated, and to not feel guilty about it. Even if it's something that people can't see, right? Like people can see a broken leg, or they can see the physical effects of chemotherapy. When you're not in good health, you're not in good health. And if you can see it, that's one thing. If you can't see it, it doesn't make it any less legitimate and any less real. I can assure you that the physical pain that I feel on a daily basis is not just in my head. Like it is, I'm really feeling it. And so I want to listen to it. I want to acknowledge it. I want to give it, I want to honor my body in the way that I think it deserves to be honored, and just really try every day to do something that is going to help the physical part of me be okay.
When,
Yeah.
when we have this sort of shame and guilt and when we're experiencing these things, that's the stigma talking, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Totally.
us allowing, that's self-stigma. That's the sort of stigma of our society. When you're experiencing these physical symptoms and you reach out to a friend or your husband or a colleague,
Mm-hmm.
how are they reacting? What are they saying? Is it just a matter of listening? What's that conversation like?
I'm very lucky. Like I said earlier, I have people who are incredibly compassionate in my life. And so people will say like, then, go like, you need to go lay down, or is there like a medicine that you can take that'll help you feel better? Or what can I do to help? Like, that's always, I think, one of the nicest things that people can say.
Yeah.
What can I do? Can I do something to help you? Like my husband is good at that. Like if there are days where I have a migraine that is debilitating, he'll be like, well, what can I do? Do you want, like, he'll like kiss my head or whatever, just little things like that make such a difference. I definitely am met with compassion and offers of help. And so that makes a huge difference. I think if I were met with people who are like, well, you don't look sick. You don't look like you don't feel well. Or,
Ugh,
I mean, like, what do
yeah.
you mean your depression is making your body hurt? Isn't depression like in your head? If
Oh,
someone
yeah.
were to say those things to me, I think like I try to be the queen of kindness, but I think I would really have to bite my tongue in that moment.
Yeah.
Um, I would reconsider being kind in that moment. So yeah, I really am so appreciative of the compassion that I met with. But I think it's just practice for me to sort of be like, look, I need to tell someone, or I need to just be honest with people that physically I can't do much today. Like I really don't feel well. And that's just kind of how it is.
That's great. I mean, you're recognizing you're attuned to your body and you're
Mhm.
attuned to the things that affect you and make your experience with mental health a little bit more manageable.
And on the flip side, on the days when I do feel really good, or I feel like the weight of that concrete, block isn't as heavy, I really try to engage in life as much as I can that particular day or that moment. So I don't want to take those moments where I feel good for granted. I don't want to be like, well, I feel good. But I'll probably just, like lay around today. Some people may do that and that's fine. It's to each his own. But for me, on those days when I feel well enough, I get so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can do laundry and I can clean the kitchen or I could go to the grocery store, run errands. That feels like such a gift to me. And I'm like, I will do everything I can until that good feeling wears away. And I know
Mm-hmm.
I have to stop. So I'm grateful that I do have that respite from pain and from sort of debilitation. I'm very grateful for that.
Aside from the obvious, very exciting tasks of cleaning up the house and doing laundry,
I'm
what?
excited about that. I am Monica Geller. I am Monica Geller through and through, I will admit.
I'm poking you because I actually have the same thing. I enjoy doing laundry and cleaning up the house
I
and
do.
stuff. Are there other things maybe you do as well that you enjoy that on those sort of good days where you're not feeling the physical pain? What
Yeah.
other types of things you do?
I mean, just going out and being with people. I'm definitely a homebody by nature, I think. I really love being at home, and we just bought our first house back in June, so we're kind of like in the new house honeymoon phase where we just want to be at home all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But, when my body doesn't hurt and I don't physically feel awful, just like going out and meeting someone for coffee feels so euphoric. It feels like I'm living. Like this is wonderful. Like the air smells better and the sun is brighter. I'm with a person and I'm fully present and I'm not distracted by pain or whatever. So that kind of stuff feels really exciting to me. Even like just going out to the movies or going, shopping for fun. Like if, I'm able to do that. So those kind of going out and being in the world is a huge deal for me, because usually it's like I go out. I joke that I don't want to leave the house unless I have to go to work or like the emergency room or the grocery store. Like that's for being at home, and my body hurts a lot, so I
Yeah.
just want to be at home. But yeah, those little things where I'm kind of engaging in the world and I'm seeing people and being with people. Just spending time with my husband, like out in the world, just kind of maybe going to a bookstore or something like that. It just feels really, I kind of feel like a one percenter. Can I say that? I just feel so luxurious.
You can say whatever you'd like. Pittsburgh is a great place for bookshops. I
It
do
really
recall that.
is.
It's a great
It really
literary
is.
town.
It is. Well, we have so many institutions of higher ed. We have so many colleges and universities around. It's hard not, you can't like throw a pebble without hitting a library or something like that, a bookstore.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're very lucky.
The physical effects, the physical experiences you have related to your depression have they changed over time? Have they, have new ones popped up? Do you foresee sort of you existing with these physical lasting effects for your life, or do you sort of maybe see potentially things improving in certain areas? What does that look like for you?
It's funny you should say that. So I mentioned earlier that I'm turning 40 in a couple of weeks, and my husband is already 40, and we were joking that like it's almost like something like there's a switch in your body that when you hit your late 30s and your early 40s, like there's a switch where things just start to hurt. So there's days where I'm like, is this just the 40s talking, or is this actual depression? And the other thing is I was tested for fibromyalgia. I have a lot of my symptoms are very similar to fibromyalgia. And when I had the test for it, it came back negative. It felt like it was kind of a cursory test though. So it was just done by like my primary care physician. So I'm not sure how thorough or extensive it was. And maybe I need to go back and get that tested again. But I do kind of feel like the physical reality I have now is something I'm going to be living with for the rest of my life. Our bodies change as we get older. Our metabolism changes. We just change. And so I'm kind of like, I've accepted it. But one of the things that I actually kind of feel ashamed. Like I don't exercise, and I really know that I should, but it's very hard to think about getting up and getting like physically active when you have depression, because for so often you feel lethargic. You feel like you just really, it's not laziness. It's just this like feeling of not being able to do things. And so the idea of exercising feels insurmountable to me.
Yeah.
But I kind of rationally, I know, like, Laura, if you could just get on a treadmill for like a half an hour, you know that you would feel better. Like I've done it before, so I know. But being able to do it regularly is just something I really, really struggle with. And I think a lot of the reason is because physically, I don't feel well enough.
Sure.
It's like saying to someone who has the flu, right? Who just feels really miserable. Like, oh, but just go ahead and jump on the treadmill and you'll feel better. Like, oh, it's really hard for me. So the physical reality, the pain that I feel, I've noticed a few new things since I've gotten older. Like my migraines are more prevalent now. Just sort of the general like aches and pains in my body. I definitely feel that more than I did, say, even 5 or 6 years ago. And like I said, I don't know if it's just getting older or if maybe I do have fibromyalgia, if it's, combination of that, depression. I just know that my body doesn't feel well very often.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there listening has any advice on like how I can really, truly start exercising, convince me. I need it. I need it so bad because I know that it would help. It would have to help. Everyone tells me that it helps. You say that, yoga helps you. I have to do something. I think it could be really like life-changing for me, but I just, for whatever reason, I can't get there. And I don't know why.
Well, it's challenging. I empathize with your experience because when you are experiencing a deep depression, that feeling of heaviness and emptiness and hopelessness, that's not conducive to being outside and running or,
Right.
that it's just not. And I'd surmise even that, if you manage to even, as you're experiencing this deep depression, if you manage to get outside and try to walk, it might not even help because you're still you're still so stuck in that depressive state.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe I'm just speculating here, but for me, when I've experienced sort of darker depressions, I have been able to get out and do stuff more, and I don't know why that is. It doesn't necessarily like directly combat the depression. It does, I think, help me with anxiety a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in my late teens and early 20s, the listeners know this by now, I had an eating disorder, and I wrote about it, and you were kind enough to read it. Thank you, Laura.
Oh my God. No, and it is one of the most beautiful and powerful pieces I've ever read.
Oh, well, that's very sweet of you.
Phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Oh, thank you. But I'm just thinking of, sometimes I wonder, that experience of my life, I feel like I do have lasting physical damages to my body. I was down to 118 pounds and I look like a stegosaurus. It was very scary. And to this day, I have, hip pain, and I have back pain. I have arthritis in my back. I have the doctor said it's benign, but I have some weird cysts on my hip bone, and I have displacement in my vertebra. I wonder if it's related to that experience. I guess I'm bringing that up because I do think that, obviously our mental health, we're affected physically by our mental health. And I do, I guess what I'm saying is I do feel, for me personally, that getting out of the house a little bit helps just my overall mental health. It doesn't necessarily directly combat the depression, because ultimately, for me, a lot of my mental health issues are related to my desire to shut myself off from the world and isolate. And when I get into that mode, it has this sort of wildfire effect where it's affecting so many different areas of my life, where I'm drinking too much. I'm having more anger. I'm just more irritable, and it's just sort of it just affects everything, every sort of aspect of my being.
Yes, totally.
So I don't know if I was making a point there, but I guess
no, I think you are. I mean, I think there's something to be said for being able to feel like you can go out into the world. One of the things that's been really hard for me in the last several years is I live in Pittsburgh, and so we joke that you can experience all 4 seasons in one day in Pittsburgh. And I do not do well with cold temperatures. I'm very, very sensitive to cold temperatures. I also joke that it has to be 75 before I'll take off my parka. I have physical pain when I'm cold. And so it's really hard for me to go outside and, exercise, to walk, or running just seems like something that's just never going to be part of my life. But just even walking, or going to an outdoor pool and swimming or something like that, it has to be really warm for me to function. And so that's another reason why I really like being inside, because I can control the temperature, control how it affects my my body. And so I'm kind of limited in that way, that if I were to go outside and exercise, it would be limited to July and August, and that's it, because I literally am too cold for the rest of the year.
Well, I live in Southern California, where it's always 75. I don't know what you're doing in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh is so great. I just wish that the weather was warmer. I love Pittsburgh so much. And, I've lived kind of a little bit of everywhere. I moved around a lot when I was younger, and after college, I lived in London for a while, and that's just rainy and dreary. I loved London, but the weather was not, wonderful. But our families are here, and we really do love Pittsburgh. But oh my goodness, if I could have San Diego weather every day of my life, I would be so happy. I'm so jealous of people who have that.
Well, the grass is always greener on the other side, because I've been wanting to move out of Southern California for a long time. But, Jessica's close with her family, and I love her family as well. So, we're not doing that for any time soon.
We could do a 1-year life swap.
Ooh, yeah, like Freaky Friday.
Right?
Yeah, I like it.
You can have some of our snow. We're happy to share.
I would love that. I do honestly love much colder weather. I run very warm, and I'm always in shorts. Even, I lived in New York for a couple of years, and this was right after college, and I would be the only person on the in Manhattan walking around in shorts, and it was like 20 degrees outside.
You have like Minnesota blood in you.
I think I do. I'm actually going out to Minnesota in April again, which I'm excited about.
Bring your shorts.
I'm going to. I bring them everywhere. I guess what I want to start to think about or talk about is, well, actually, I was going to ask you, if you don't mind answering, do you take medication for your depression?
I do, and I wanted to bring that up. I'm glad you asked. So I do. When I first started taking medication, I was in, I think it was like early college, and I think they put me on, I think it was Prozac, which I didn't respond well to. And I've tried a variety of different medications. I did Prozac, I did Lexapro, and the one that I've been on the longest and most recently is citalopram. So it's kind of the generic form of, I think it's Celexa. And I'm on 20 milligrams a day. And I take my pill, in the morning before we leave the house for work. And I know for a fact that I need it. I had worked with my doctor years ago to try to wean off of it and see what that might feel and look like. And we tried it, and it did not have good effect at all. I knew right then and there, I was like, no, I actually really need this medication in order to sort of be able to function and move through the world. And I feel very lucky that I have never really felt shame about taking medication. I know that for some people, it's very hard to admit they take medication or they don't want to take medication. But that hasn't been the experience for me. I feel so lucky that I have good health insurance. I think a 3-month supply of my medication is like $5. And
that's amazing.
It's amazing. It's this one little pill that I take once a day, and it helps tremendously. And I feel like I'm kind of in like a recovery position right now, I guess you could say. Like I feel like the medicine it helps me, and I'm not actively in therapy right now. And I feel like the last sort of bout of real serious deep depression I had was about a year ago. And I think for me, one of the things I've noticed my mental illness journey is that I tend to, whenever there's a significant change or a significant event in my life, that seems to trigger an episode. And when I change jobs after, having the same job at the same university for almost 12 years, changing jobs and going to a new university was incredibly difficult for me. I wasn't quite prepared for how difficult it was going to be. And I fell into a very, very deep depression. It took everything in me to get out of bed and go to work in the morning. And I considered getting my medication increased. But I knew from experience that like this too shall pass. That's my own personal experience, that when I get if I have a serious depressive episode or period, I know from experience that it passes. It's hard to trust that and believe it when it's happening.
Yeah.
But I have good people around me to remind me that this has happened before and it will end. This feeling will go away. So I didn't have my medication increased. And I'm lucky that, the depressive period, it lasted a few months. But it could have been worse. And so I'm just very glad I have the medication, because I know from a fact that it really does help me. It helps me exist.
Yeah, it helps millions of people. And I think you're right in that there is some shame around medication, but we each are different. Our biochemistry we're all unique, and not one thing is right for the next person, and so on and so on.
It's so important that you're saying that. I'm so glad you're saying that, because, you can have two people side by side, both of whom have depression, and you can have a depression medication like, Lexapro or Prozac or whatever. That medication, just because both people have the same diagnosis, doesn't mean that they can have the same kind of medication.
Right.
And, the close family member I have who has schizoaffective disorder, they're throughout the period of having this illness, this person has had to go on a variety of different kinds of medication, and those medications have had to be adjusted over the years. They've had to be, one gets removed, another one gets added. This dosage of this particular medication gets lowered while this one gets raised. And so, medication is an incredibly personal thing to have. And it is so important to work with a doctor to figure out what that is, and to not compare your medication experience, to the person next to you who might be on a different medication. I'm so glad you said that. It's so different for each person.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said we shouldn't compare, because comparing is an easy thing to fall into. I know I've done it. I was on Prozac, did not work for me. Early on, I was on Lexapro. That just numbed me out, and I didn't like that. Currently, I'm just taking fairly regularly CBD oil, which is hemp oil, which just helps with anxiety. It calms me a little bit. I personally would probably like to go back to my psychiatrist and maybe see about some other options. But most recently, the Prozac made me feel manic, and I had real high highs and real low lows, and it was not a good experience. It's
almost like those like side effects, I guess maybe you could call them, are just as bad as, not being medicated. So it's not helpful at all. Yeah. Like the side effects are something that I've really had to weigh. One of the side effects that I have is brain fog. I definitely feel like my medication sort of keeps me at like an even keel, but the side effect to that is that my brain just feels kind of cloudy and a little bit foggy. I'm incredibly forgetful. And I noticed that when I wasn't on the medication, when I tried to like wean off of it and was off it for a while, I didn't have that foggy brain fog feeling. So that's been something that I've just sort of decided, like, look, brain fog stinks. It sucks that I'm so forgetful and kind of like, little gobbledygooked in my head. But I'm happy to deal with that, as opposed to the reality of not being on the medication, which is a really bad experience.
I think that's a healthy trade-off.
Yeah. I just have to set a lot of reminders on my phone, and I always have to like, I have the silliest reminders on my phone, but I have to do it, or my brain I'm incredibly foggy brain. It's a miracle I can actually do my job each day. But I feel like sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead. I joke to my husband that he'll be like, remember we talked about this? And I'll say, I don't, like, come on, I'm super forgetful. And it's not like malicious, intent on my part at all. But I just really have a very hard time retaining information. It bothers me a lot, and I hate it. But the alternative is worse.
Exactly. And I so can relate, because I set all sorts of crazy reminders for myself, like stretch my legs, and I used to, like, Jessica and I like share calendars, and I used to I would just add it to like my regular calendar, and she's like, I'm getting notifications for you to do back stretches. She's like, this is unacceptable. So I created a new calendar that is, just reminders for myself.
I hear you. Just yesterday, there was my dad my parents want me to come over and visit this weekend and talk about some stuff. And I was like, yeah, I can totally do that. And then I set a reminder on my phone to remind me to tell my husband, because I would forget, from when I got this text message from my dad at work yesterday at like 2:00 until my husband picks me up from work at 4:30. Like those 2.5 hours, it would be gone from my brain. So I had to set a reminder that says, tell Ross that you're going to mom and dad's this weekend. It's stuff like that. I mean, it's hard. It makes work really hard. And that's another kind of physical effect of like having depression, is that my brain doesn't function as clearly and as quickly as I wish it would, or that maybe it needs to. And so my work day, I exert a lot of energy just trying to remember things and to stay on top of things at my job. And in doing so, I'm burning a lot of, energy. And so when I get home, I'm exhausted because of the brain work that I've been trying to do all day. It physically affects my body.
Yes. So yes. I'm relating 100% to your experience. And I hope, Jessica, I'm talking to my wife now. I hope, Jessica, you listen to this episode, because you'll understand now why I forget everything and also want to go to bed at 8 p.m.
Hi, Jessica. I'm happy to say hello and hope you're well. And yes, like seriously, it's a real thing. I mean, my husband and I, like, unapologetically, 8:00 is bedtime. We are in bed. We are like snuggling down so that by 8:30, 9:00, we're pretty much, ready to go to sleep, because it's exhausting to try to move through the world each day when your brain doesn't feel like it's operating optimally.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of physical energy just to make your brain work.
Totally.
So.
Totally. And like you said, you're nearly 40, so going to bed at 8 makes sense.
It really does. Thank you for validating. If I could be a professional sleeper, or a professional Netflix watcher and professional sleeper, I would have found the absolute dream job for me. So
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
I'm really good at sleeping.
I was going to bring up your medication related to your stomach issues. Did you ever have any sort of effects of your medication causing stomach issues?
It's interesting you bring that up, because I don't think I haven't really thought about that. Maybe there is a correlation. I think that I've been living with it for so long that I know how to manage it now, and I'm kind of used to it. So the thought of maybe switching medication feels really scary to me, because what if I have even worse side effects and then I have to wean off of that and then get back on my old medication? So I think that I've just gotten used to living with IBS and sort of managing it the best I can. But maybe I need to like do some WebMD research, if you will.
Well, you need to do what's right for you.
Yeah.
I only bring that up because I've had sensitivities to medications related to my stomach, and I had to go through a period of, I don't know, about a few years of just, experiment. I basically this was, I guess, 6 or 7 years ago, where my stomach was just really terrible at that time, and I eventually realized like I need to stop eating, most grain and stuff. And my stomach's been a lot better since, but I have noticed that even taking like over the counter like cold medicine or something affects my stomach.
Yes. Yeah. I think I would really be interested to look more closely at what the side effects are or can be of the medication that I'm on. But again, like I just know that this particular medication has really helped my depression and my anxiety to the point where I feel like, I haven't felt suicidal. So, in a while. So I'm going to take that as a win.
That is a win.
Not that feeling suicidal is any indication of losing or being a loser. I want to make that very clear. But I just feel like to the fact that this medication helps me want to live is a really good sign for me. And I hesitate, thinking of changing it or messing around with it.
Understandably, there's something to be said about status quo, right? Like, especially when it pertains to mental health, because it is exhausting. It's an exhausting existence. And the thought of switching medications, changing, tweaking, like that is exhausting. It is exhausting. So
it is.
I would say to you, Laura, and to myself and to the listeners, like, be kind to yourself, be patient, be accepting. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I guess, let's see. I guess those are the main topics I wanted to cover. Are there, I know you said you despise physical activity, but I'm just playing with you, but what about things like nourishment and eating and stuff like that, or stretching or massage or things like that? Have those things helped you?
Yes. So stretching is a thing that I really do believe in and have actually gotten away from in the last few months. But there was a period where I would get up every morning and I would take like 5 or 10 minutes and just stretch on the floor. And I remember saying to my husband, like, oh, it's like a miracle. I feel so much better after I stretch. Like, it really helps. And it's so funny when we get away from things that feel good and help us. I'm kind of like, why would I stop doing that? But I did for some reason. And just today, I was thinking like, wow, you really need to start stretching again. The cold weather makes me like hunch my shoulders up to my ears a little to try to stay warm. Like, not that my shoulders are going to help me stay warm, but we have that physical reaction of kind of bunching up our shoulders because we're cold.
Well, yeah, and you have those strange shoulders with the hand warmers. You have those. You have this weird body thing where you have hands coming out of your shoulders, helping your ears.
So my body, like, I get tense because I'm cold often. And so my body hurts. And when I stretch, it feels kind of like the pain actually starts to go away a little bit. So stretching is something that I highly recommend in general. And again, I am not a licensed medical professional at all, but just from personal lived experience, I can say that I think stretching is really good and helpful. And the other thing that I try to do, I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian for over 20 years. And so I do eat, fruits and vegetables and grain. I'm not gluten-free. But I do have a real sweet tooth. So I find that sugar, which I tend to eat way more than I should, definitely affects my mood. It makes my body inflamed and it makes my body hurt. So any chance that I can, if I can like say no to sugar, I feel like I've done the greatest thing that day. Like, I feel like I am a supreme winner of the world because I said no to something sugary. But my body physically thanks me for that. And I have to continually sort of remind myself that, not eating as much sugar, stretching, staying warm. I wear probably 6 or 7 layers of clothes every day, like a scarf and a hat and gloves and like 3 layers of shirts and like leggings under my pants and like
I'm sweating just thinking of that image.
Right. My husband is like you in that he runs warm. He and I, it's a miracle that we're married because we are completely different temperatures all the time. It's like, how do we live in the same space?
Sure.
But I am just physically cold all the time. So when I'm warm, when I get hot showers or take hot baths, or I use one of those, so I call it my comfort pack. It's one of those like fabric sacks that you put like rice or whatever, and you put it in the microwave.
Oh yeah.
I really cannot live without that. It helps my body tremendously. So I kind of unapologetically, I engage in those things. I have my comfort pack with me. I wear lots of layers of clothing. I eat, my fruits and vegetables when I can. And I try to say no to sugar. I've not been good at that with the holidays at all. But those little things, those are kind of, it's like self-care to me. Those are aspects of actions of self-care. and they do help. So I just have to remember to do that. And I'm very forgetful, as I said. So maybe what I need to do is put like Post-it notes all over the house. Like,
Yeah.
say no to the cookie and go take a hot shower or something like that to help me remember that those things help my body, and therefore they help my mental well-being.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
Are there things you do? Like, do you have like physical, like, do you eat well and things that kind of help you?
Yeah, there are things that help me. Definitely trying to eat well. I eat very clean, pretty clean. I think I, like you, have a sweet tooth, but Jessica would argue that my sweet tooth is very old manish. And
do you have your Werther's? You have Werther's Originals in your pocket?
I don't, but I do. I'm going to take it another level. I do have hard peppermint candies in my pocket.
Nice.
I know. I eat those, and I also love black licorice, like legit black licorice. So
black licorice is amazing. I love
it is.
Too.
Oh, I'm so glad. We are simpatico, Laura. I love that.
The black jelly beans. Bring me all your black jelly beans. I want them.
Anytime I'm eating black licorice, Jessica is, curling up her face in disgust.
Ross is the same, for sure.
Who are these monsters?
I
know. So yeah, eating clean, definitely stretching for me as well is a big one. I was a athlete for most of my life. I played soccer for 25 years and a runner and stuff, and stretching, warming up, stretching before and after has always been a huge help for me, especially, because I deal with back issues and hip issues and things like that. So stretching is a huge one, because one of the things we forget about is the back, stretching the back, and the back's impact on every sort of other facet of our physical self, because it's connected to everything.
Say the same thing. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially someone like me who runs, and I my hamstrings get tight, and then that, when my hamstrings are tight, that causes more pain to my back. It's all connected. So
all connected.
And then I try to, I'll go and get a massage every once in a while. That's that one for me is physically like very helpful, especially because like I said, my hamstrings get so tight, and then my IT bands get really, really tight. That's the big sort of tendon that runs along the side of your legs from from your ankle essentially into your butt. And it can get really tight and cause issues. It can cause like major knee pain and things like that. So yeah, those are the things. And then, I try to run and walk. And recently I've been trying to do a little bit less running because it is so high impact. I got myself a mountain bike. And I started getting into that. And I'm trying to mix things up.
That's awesome. I am incredibly clumsy. And so, walking is like, that's it for me. A bike would be very bad. Rollerblading, nope, can't do that. Yeah, I'm not really coordinated at all. So I have to say no to those types of things. But that's super cool that you like have the opportunity to do those things. I too love massage. I think that massage is, if you find someone who is really attuned to the mind, body, spirit connection, I think that those kinds of massages can be so incredibly healing, not just for your body physically, but for you mentally and emotionally as well. I have a massage therapist that I've been going to for probably 5 or 6 years. And every time I leave afterwards, I feel like I'm floating.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, is this what being pain-free feels like? Because I literally feel pain-free for a very short period of time, but I do feel it when I leave. And the only reason that I don't do it more regularly is financially. I can't afford it. I feel like massage should be covered by insurance because it is incredibly therapeutic. And I feel that it really it can make one's health so much better. But it's so expensive to get a good hour massage, with a tip is like $100, $130. And just not money that, we have. So anytime somebody gets me like a gift certificate for a massage or, asks like, what do you want for your birthday? I'm like, I'd like a massage, please. It really is one of the most healing, 60 or 90 minutes of my life.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
I highly recommend it. Yeah.
I agree completely. And I think for me, I know a thing about myself is I like touch. Like touch is like a healing factor for me. I derive comfort from it, and even if it's from a total stranger, the touch of someone, that human connection is very healing for me.
Well, it releases, the happy chemicals in your body.
Mm-hmm.
I've said this to my husband. All he has to do is like hold my hand or put his hand on my shoulder, and my whole body, I physically feel this. I don't even know how to explain it. Like I relax, legitimately relax for a minute,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel this this happy like chemical goes through me.
Yep.
And that touch, I call him my like serotonin distributor, because I guess that's what it feels like for me when I just have that human touch, from someone that I know and trust. It's amazing. So touch, and we're social beings. So I think we kind of are biologically designed to want to touch and physically connect with each other. So I'm happy to hear that that's something that's really helpful for you, because it's the same for me as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So before we start to wrap up, a segment of the show that we have been doing is talking about our empathy heroes.
Mm.
And this is where we bring up someone in our life, either currently or someone, it could be a total stranger, someone you interact with on social media, or maybe someone who's dead, or someone who's even fictional. Just someone that has sort of embraced the cause of empathy in their lives, and who is a hero to you because of it. Do you have any empathy heroes in your life?
I have a list. My heavens, I'm
All
very
right.
lucky. I won't name everyone because we'll be here for a while, but I would have to say that, the top person is my husband. My husband, Ross, is a therapist. He's a mental health therapist.
I didn't know this.
Yes. So Ross works in the mental health community. He's part of a community treatment team here in Pittsburgh. And so every day he goes to work, and he, is with people who have pervasive mental illness diagnoses. And he's working on, he's certified, and he's working on getting his licensure. So it's very exciting. But I just feel so blessed that my life partner is someone who believes deeply in feeling deeply, and acknowledging feelings, and paying attention to feelings, and seeing people. I mean, he and I are both people of faith. So our Christian faith, I'm Catholic, is very important to me. So I feel like every person that I encounter, and I feel for Ross the same way, that the people that we encounter, the right and only thing to do is to be compassionate and show empathy to them, and to acknowledge their undeniable dignity and their undeniable humanity. So to have my spouse be someone who I know would never ever judge me or someone else for, mental illness or feelings or anything like that, feels like it's just, what a gift. And then my parents, I'm so incredibly blessed that my parents are the same way, and that, mental health and our emotions and our feelings have always been a huge part of our family. And I can recall many, many nights at the dinner table after dinner, like sitting and talking about these kinds of things, and having these conversations, on the couch in the living room after we watched TV shows or whatever, that my parents have always encouraged, my brother and me to talk about how we're feeling and to acknowledge it and to see what we need to do to make things better if they're not, going well. So those are kind of like in my family, those are the three people who are totally empathy heroes to me. And then someone I work with, my colleague and friend Ariana, is probably the nicest human being I've ever encountered in my life. Like, truly. She has the most gentle spirit, and when she encounters people, she is truly present, and she is always, her kindness, like her level of kindness is so impressive. She's just someone who I know that if I'm having a really bad day, she is always, always going to treat me with such compassion and such gentleness. And I see her do it with everyone else she encounters. So Ariana is definitely like, she has a gift. She has a real gift. So those are kind of the people like off the top of my head right now that I feel like they wear capes. They're my heroes.
I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
And it's so exciting to hear again that you have, your parents and your husband Ross, being so open to that experience and to talking about stuff and supportive. That's very heartwarming to me, and I'm glad you have that in your life.
Thanks. And I would encourage, people who are listening, if you tend to be someone who shows great empathy and compassion, and if you encounter someone who maybe doesn't have that in their lives, like they don't have people who are showing them compassion or empathy, I really encourage you to reach out to that person and just be there in the best way you can, in a healthy way with healthy boundaries, but just to really share your compassion and your love for people and your kindness in any way that you can, because one interaction, even if it seems so little to you, could be life-changing for the person across from you. I'm a big believer in that, to never give up the opportunity to show that compassion and that love to every single person that you can.
Beautifully said, and I 100% agree. It's why this podcast exists. Woohoo! My empathy hero this week is, I mentioned her earlier, is Mindy.
Oh, Mindy.
Mindy Pants, Mindy, as I like to call her. Mindy is someone I work with, and she lives out in Minnesota, St. Paul, Minnesota. So she's Minnesotan. And she is, so recently there was sort of a shift in sort of like my job responsibilities, and I work very closely with Mindy, which is my true delight in life, because she's is
so lovely.
She is so lovely, so sweet, very thoughtful, very helpful. She, the way she talks about her brother and her mother and just her world is very inspiring, and I love her for it. So yeah, empathy hero this week for me is Mindy Pants.
Yay, Mindy!
Yay, Mindy!
Mindy, I owe you some direct messages or emails or whatever, if you're listening.
Well, make sure you write those down on your hand.
Right. I know, I'll forget. I actually have a piece of paper and a pen right here with me, and I'm jotting things down that I won't forget.
Awesome. Well, as we wrap up, Laura, is there a place you want to direct listeners where they can maybe connect with you online or in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Twitter. My handle is Secret Agent L. And I'm also on Instagram at Secret Agent L. I don't really do Facebook very often, and I no longer have the Secret Agent L website. Once I decided to retire the project, I was like, I don't want to spend the money to keep this web address alive. So I actually don't really have an official website anymore for the Secret Agent L project. There is a blog spot. I think if you Google Secret Agent L blog spot, you'll be able to find like the very early portion of the Secret Agent L project before we, took it off a blog and made it a website and all that. So you can see some of the Secret Agent L project in its earliest years if you Google Secret Agent L and Blogspot or Blogger. But yeah, I'm very active on Twitter and Instagram, and I would love to connect with you. And I would love to hear, how if you're living with depression and you have physical pain or your physical reality is challenging, I'm a compassionate listener. At least I hope that people will think I'm compassionate. I try to be compassionate, and would love to connect. So, I'll see you on the Twitters and the Instagram. My Instagram is mostly just pictures of my cat, Olive, because we love Olive and we just think she's the greatest. So I post a lot of pictures of Olive. But yeah, that's where I am.
Olive is the greatest. I mean,
I
think Mindy would argue that. I think Mindy would argue that Tigger and Spot are also the greatest.
I think they can all be the greatest because
I agree.
Cats. I was never a cat person until I got married, and my husband grew up with cats, but I had grown up with Boston Terriers because I think they're the greatest breed ever. And it wasn't until we got married that we were like, well, we'd love to have a pet, but we live in an apartment, so we can't have a dog. And my husband was like, why don't we just go to the shelter and look at cats? And I was like, all right, cats, whatever. And then the minute I saw Olive, I was like, there is something about her. And we, went into a little meeting room and we met with Olive for a little bit, and she is the other love of my life. Like she is so good for my mental health. She really is like therapeutic for me.
Oh, yeah.
So I naturally want to share her with the world because I think she's fabulous.
She is fabulous. And pets, animals are very therapeutic.
Oh,
I know I get a lot of therapy out of Scooby, my black lab. And even our horses. I don't spend the time like Jessica spends the time with them, but I do clean up their shit. So I'm with them a little bit.
Do you know anything about equine therapy? Are you familiar with equine therapy?
I am familiar with it. I don't know much about it, but there was a time in our lives a couple of years ago, Jessica and I were actually talking about, hey, horses are very expensive. They still are. And, maybe we can work on a sort of something where we can, create a little program where we can bring people in to spend time with our horses. Mm-hmm. That's something that I think that is still a possibility, but we haven't talked about it in a while, but yeah, I think that is a powerful thing, and I've heard that it can be very healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And maybe, any of your listeners who don't have pets, for whatever reason, I recommend if you're not allergic to to cats or dogs or animals, if you can go to a shelter or, volunteer at a shelter, animals have an incredibly powerful way of healing. And we have, therapy animals for all kinds of, illnesses and challenges, and they take them into hospitals for patients. So I'm just such a big believer that animals can heal us in ways that other avenues can't.
I agree. I think they pick up on how you're experiencing the world for sure.
Oh.
Well, as for connecting with Yumi Empathy, guys, you can connect with Yumi Empathy on Twitter and Instagram at Yumi Empathy. And we have a Facebook group. So go to facebook.com/groups/Yumi Empathy and go share some things. There's some great conversation going on there. And if you want to be on the show or just connect with me, you can reach me at yumiempathy@gmail.com. And then please leave us some ratings and reviews in iTunes. That helps out the show a lot and gets... Apple does some sort of algorithmic thing and potentially more ear holes and hearts on this podcast, which is one of my goals. So I will say thank you to Laura for being my guest.
Oh,
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been really wonderful.
You are wonderful.
Thank you.
And to close it out, as I always do, I'm here, you're here. We're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's you, me, empathy.